Welcome back to the Achieve Your Apex podcast. Chad Hyams here, author and voice of reason, taking you through chapter 10. We've been talking about adapting. Actually, I've been referring to it as adapt or die, yet the chapter's just called adapting. I was nice and easy when it came to that. We've talked about the difference between change and adaptation. And what I want to talk about on this episode is some of the silly things we do and ask you some powerful questions to help you move to the next level. So, those silly things we do, change is something that we deal with all the time. Adapting is something we work on all the time. And yet, we still end up eating the same crappy food. We still end up doing those things that we know are not good for us, and we wonder why we're not hitting our goals, right? We allow these things to push other things down on our priority list. Why? Because they're not fun. They're not interesting. We don't want to do them. We keep changing what we know we should do. And then we wonder why we don't get the results we are looking for. Can you answer that one? Because I can't. And then when we do adapt or change in a situation that requires it and we have success, we often then fall back to who we were, not staying with that change or the adaptation that we have created in our world. Again, why are we doing this? I don't know. What I want to say is that evolution never stops and growth never stops for us, right? We've all heard the expression, if we're not moving forward, we're dying, right? It's if we stop adapting, we're just going to get left behind, is truly what we're talking about here. Okay. Who are you and what is it that you do that needs to be adapted or changed to lead you to the success you want? Let me ask you some questions here. How flexible are you when you're discussing or debating? We'll use the word debating there, right? Potential solutions to problems. Do you put more importance on being right, on getting your way, on having others just agree with you? Or do you only do it when you actually feel that you're right and otherwise you don't even get into a debate? What about things that you do again and again and again and they never bring you the result you want? They just never have. You end up in the same place. What has stopped you from changing your approach? Think about that for a second. Are you just intimidated by the work you might have to put in? Are you holding on to a belief that no, sooner or later this will work, so I'm just going to stick with it? Or do you just not care and it's not worthwhile for you to do? What extent do you believe you are fully formed as a human? Now, that sounds kind of a weird question to ask, right? I mean, how much growing do you believe you still have to do? Or are you just getting enough to get everything done? Are you actively attempting to evolve? Are you attempting to broaden your horizons? Or are you saying, I like me and I'm just going to stay right here? Look, the answers to these questions I just asked you are going to put light on how you spend your time or don't spend your time and effort when it comes to adapting to pursue your goals. Okay? We have to understand that not everything is going to be laid in front of us. We want it to be. Sometimes it happens that way, yet we have to remember that we have to focus on our ability to respond, which is adaptation, to a situation to get us where they're going. Right? I've said it. I love saying it, that the shark cannot swim backwards. The great white shark is the greatest killing machine on the planet, yet he can't swim backwards, only goes forward, and can't ever stop swimming because water won't go over its gills to provide oxygen, which means literally if the shark stops moving forward, it dies, folks. And we are that shark. Now we have to move on from things that aren't working. Now, some of it is evolution, right? Because experts believe that our herbivorous ancestors, well, that's a tough one to say, right? The appendix was bigger because it had to digest things like bark and things like that that people ate back then because they didn't know what was good, wasn't good yet, what they should be eating. We don't need the appendix anymore, although it's still there. It hasn't gone away. Our evolution has not gotten us to a point yet where people are being born without an appendix. Give it another few hundred years, few hundred millennial, who knows? And that could be what ends up happening, right? Sometimes the appendix actually says, look, I don't need to be here. And people are rushed to the hospital to have it removed. Do you have yours? What about tonsils? What about wisdom teeth? What about the muscle fibers that actually produce goosebumps in you? These are just evolutionary leftovers. Okay. At the time, they were needed for something. And over time, they will start to be removed from our evolution. You can't force that adaptation to happen any quicker than it's going to happen, but you can in other areas, such as the internet. Think back to when the internet began. Now, some of you don't know a world before the internet. Some of you remember encyclopedias, okay? A handful of companies went out and built websites. And not long after that, other companies said, oh, wait, we think that's a good idea. And before you knew it, you had to have a website. Because if you don't have a website, you don't exist to most of the population anymore. Okay? It's easy to fear pushing ourselves into new forms and configurations, yet amazing things can result. Think about this: pressurized carbon gives us diamonds. Crush some grapes, you get wine, right? Press olives, you get olive oil. So when you're pressed, when you're squeezed, what are you transforming into? Is it a better version of you as you adapt and change? And can you build on things that are already there, right? Microsoft, for example, and Apple, they keep building upon the same platform. Sure, the iPhone changes a little bit again and again and again because they build on what's there. Hey, this is a success. Everybody likes this. Keep this the same. Let's add a better camera. Oh, on the next one, let's make it a little smaller, a little bigger. Let's make this, whatever it is. They're always improving the technology, yet they keep updating the things that already work. You can do the same thing in your life. Right? Remember that as you're growing. Remember that as you're adapting. And in our next episode, I'm going to share with you an amazing story of adaptation that won the World Series for one of those baseball teams out there. Make sure you join me on the next episode. And if you're a Braves fan, you definitely don't want to miss it. Until then, keep climbing.